Good evening, everybody. Welcome to RVing in New England. Got my buddy John there, and we have two special guests tonight. So we're going to jump into the show right away rather than bore you with the details in New England. But we've got Chris Dunphy and Cherie and and they are Technomadia.
Time out.
Wait, it only took me 30 seconds to keep me.
Time out.
What?
I'm the co-host. I don't even get a chance to welcome the audience. You go right into the damn guests.
Well, I was trying to avoid you.
This is like the clicky clack show here.
Don't you want me to tell people don't you want me to tell all the people about the fun that we've had in our Winnebago Vita, which Winnebago has provided for us to go out and see the Northeast? And don't you want me to talk about all the great places we stayed with Harvest hosts in the last week? And don't you want me to say that something irrelevant also before we bring the guests on?
Actually, no. You just did it. So let me see who we got. We got Frank Cates is in. He says, "I'm here at the Cape, sun poking through the trees, sitting just waiting for the words of wisdom again." Scott,
you might be on the wrong show.
Scott Nichols, thanks for joining. Scott, Jim Convoy. Jim, I'll bet you're busy replacing roofs down at New England Roof there. Every time you post something, you've got some great work going on. Sandy Ellingson from the RV Women's Association. Chris and Cherie.
Wait. If you're going to tell about where she's from, get the name right. It's the RV
Women's Alliance. You're right.
You know her?
Right. You got me. You got me on that. I'm guilty. And Walter Swenson is on. Now, Walter Swenson, he's our chief engineer. He works for Dell Technologies, and he's a geek's. So you guys will feel free to have a separate conversation with Walter if you want, but I'm sure he's going to add a lot of good questions.
I don't think he's qualified for the show though, because he's in Pennsylvania and this is the New England show. So
we're branching out.
Okay.
We're in Florida though.
Yeah, I know, but
he's at the KOA Delaware Gap this week on vacation. They celebrate.
Right, and he just had an anniversary.
That was last night. See, but if we were on last night, he would have told Donna that they had to just delay the anniversary for a day because Bob and John were on, and he'd have to be on the show. Gail Hogan's on. I think Gail is at the Finger Lakes. Oh, I'm not sure if she joined that group this weekend. She may be at the Finger Lakes. Karen Minton.
Gulrich.
Joining Karen. I think she's a newbie here.
Steve, one of your people?
Regular?
We could be.
Huh? Is he part of your fan club?
Name looks familiar.
Yeah. Steve Giano is one of ours. Valerie, nice to have you back. Troy Gar.
Hola. From Camp Wow in Port Charlotte. Port Charlotte, that's on the West Coast?
Yeah. I think
on the West Coast by Tampa.
South of Tampa, I believe. Yeah.
So, south of Tampa by Marco Island, I think.
Way down there. Okay.
So I'm going to let you two kind of introduce yourself because we gave you a big promotion as the internet and the connectivity experts, and I'm actually here to learn because John and I are clueless when it comes to putting this stuff in. So go back as far as you'd like. Go back to 2006. What, John? One thing, John. Then I'm going to let the guests talk.
Well, we're clueless on a lot of things, and technology is certainly one of the main ones.
That's true. So, Chris, Cherie,
go ahead. Elevator pitch, guys. Go ahead with the elevator.
Go ahead.
Okay. God, yeah. So, I've been into mobile technology forever, but hit the road full time. Always dreamed of living in an RV, so hit the road full time in 2006. Evicted myself from a San Francisco apartment, moved into a teeny tiny tab clamshell to set out, see the world solo, and I had mobile internet and solar power on board, no air conditioning, no bathroom, none of that stuff. Last thing I expected to do in my first year on the road was meet somebody who wanted to move in with me, and met Cherie.
And I was living in Florida, which is back where we presently are aboard our boat. We've come up a little bit since that little
that tiny tab.
But I was working as a software developer from my house. I was already doing a lot of personal travels. I had a pop-up camper, so I was getting out camping and had already been contemplating if full-time RVing might be something that I could do. At the time, I didn't think it was possible. And I think the internet would be good enough for me to work remotely. But then I met this guy online. on a Prius forum. We both had hybrid electric cars back then.
It wasn't even an RV thing. It was a Prius forum.
It was a Prius thing, yeah.
Wow. Did you guys have one of those ugly gray ones like we did?
I had a snazzy red one.
And I had a really cool iridescent kind of gray-green one. And the reason I posted there is when I hit the road to live in my RV is I discovered the one thing a Prius couldn't do. I loved it, but it could not tow anything.
Which is front wheel drive.
That was not part of the game plan, right?
Yeah, that's what led me to the tab is I started looking for the smallest possible trailer that I could live in. And I got excited by the small trailers, but then I discovered even the smallest possible trailer would be too much for a Prius. So I traded the Prius for a Jeep, posted online to the Prius forum saying, farewell to my Prius, here's my new adventures. And that's where she sent me the first message saying, hey, maybe someday we'll meet.
Yeah. And then we just talked online for a while, figured we had a lot in common. We both shared a love of technology and a love of travel. And first date, we was 27 hours out stealth boondocking in San Francisco in his little trailer. And we pretty much
by the end of that, it was like, hey, come to Florida and maybe we'll do this again. So
and that was 14 years ago.
Talk technology with 27 hours.
California from Florida?
I'm from Florida.
Yeah, she had a house in Florida. I was nomading around the West Coast, and I was like, I had already had plans to go to the East Coast for Christmas. So I was like, hey, I'll swing down to Florida. And then that next meeting never ended. And we spent a year in the tab and decided we needed something bigger. So we went to a 17-foot Oliver, which was an amazing RV we had custom made for us. And then
in 2010, we bought a bus. The actual size is a little
slightly
larger.
bigger than that one.
So this is our main RV, and it's currently out in Arizona. We have an RV lot at the Escapees Co-op Park there.
Cool 1961 vintage bus.
And then
I love those.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2017, we decided to pursue our boating dreams, and we bought a motor yacht. So that's what we're aboard right now. We're currently in Sanford, Florida.
And we're splitting our year between our bus, which is out on the West Coast, and our boat here on the East Coast. And we have a Winnebago Travado camper van that we use as our daily driver from both of them. And we're getting out and doing a lot of, about every week, we're going out to local state parks and mixing it up.
And
all three of them need mobile internet.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We have mobile internet coming out of our ears.
I think it's important to ask before we go to our audience who already has a line of questions for you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to ask that both of you had the capability to work remotely in your prior careers.
I did. I was already working remotely from home. I'd been a software developer since the early 90s. And he worked in mobile technology, hadn't yet developed his own independent career.
Yeah, so I was actually the chief spy for Palm and PalmSource. You remember the Palm pilots back in the day. Yep. And when PalmSource imploded, I got a big severance, and I was like, I told all the other Silicon Valley jobs, I don't want a regular job anymore. I want to hit the road and use the mobile technology that I was part of helping invent and spread and everything. And set off, I said, I'll do independent consulting projects. I'm not going to work for anybody anymore. So that's when I hit the road and left Silicon Valley.
And what age was that, Chris? What age?
We were both 33 when we started our full-time nomading.
So you had that wanderlust long before most people. Most people today that live quote unquote standard lifestyles, they have to wait till they're about 50 before they get sick of the crap that they put up with, right? That they finally had the guts to say, I ain't going to do this no more.
Right.
That I think that used to be true. Or we're finding more and more people are, because more jobs can now be done remotely, especially if they have mobile internet.
Yeah.
So more are able to hit the road, especially with COVID and the pandemic, more working from home. And they're thinking, well, why?
I can work from home. Why do I need a house?
Why can't I just hit the road in an RV, which is now perceived as one of the safest ways to still travel. So we're seeing a lot of folks hitting the road, working remotely and needing mobile internet to do so.
Like 14 years ago, when we were first in the RV world, we were the big time youngsters as far as full-time traveling around. Now because we helped launch the Escapers and so many of these other communities that have come along, and now we go to some events and we're like the old folks now.
Gee, what does that make John and I?
You guys are pretty young.
That's a singular statement. What does it make you?
Oh, okay.
I'm still a kid. But, it's really the appropriate time to be talking about this because in the last 4 months, and say it was April 15th or March 15th that things changed. For the last 4 months today, really, people have seen that their life moving forward may change for the better as far as freedom of movement is concerned, that you don't need to commute 90 minutes each day one way to be stuck in a cubicle and then get an hour for lunch and then go back and leave the place at 5 o'clock, get home at 7 o'clock at night, take a shower, watch some baloney on TV, and get to repeat the whole thing for 5/7 of your life. So although the COVID stuff has been negative in many aspects of our life because of the people that lost their life, the physical freedom is really being pushed forward, right? As well as the capability to do your job from a distant location without being locked into that corporate cell.
Well, I think it's changing how we all work and how businesses are realizing we don't all have to be contained in these office buildings in order to be productive, in order to get stuff done, and that remote work and having people be happy and independent and working remotely can be highly productive.
Yeah, and a lot of companies are finding people are more productive while they're working remote than they ever were in the office.
Because they're starting work without that commute.
And they fought it for so many years because they didn't want to give up the control of it. And when they had to give up the control of it, I think the single most exciting thing that's come out of this whole virus is that the companies had to sit back and realize that the work was getting done. It was getting done faster. It was getting done more efficiently. People were communicating better. And I've had technology companies for 40, almost 50 years. And it was always a challenge. We knew that we had the technology to do that, but the companies wouldn't do it. And now that they have figured it out, you're right, Cherie. I mean, we don't need all those big office buildings. We don't need all those big manufacturing buildings. We don't need all that real estate, on the waterfront in New York, in Boston, or in the skyscrapers in New York City. So there's a major downturn that's going to come about from all of that. Walter Swenson says, I have chatted with Chris and Cherie on some of their broadcasts. Bert Beaver's Technomadia 10-year follower.
Wow.
Guys. Jerry Plant from Cape Cod following Technomadia for a few years. Jerry says, are you still planning on doing the Great Circle? Enlighten us.
So it's called the Great Loop, which is a circumnavigation of the eastern part of the U.S. And a lot of people don't realize, but the eastern part of the U.S. is actually a big island. You take the Intracoastal Waterway up to New York City. You go in at the Erie Canals, all the way up to the Great Lakes. And then you take the river systems down back to Mobile. And that's what we bought the boat to do. It's about a 6,000-mile journey. And we were in pursuit of it when COVID, we decided to stay still.
Yeah, because you can't even cross into Canada now, and a lot of there's no point in doing that because a lot of the stuff you would do is closed. But there's a whole community of travelers who do this as an annual route where they are continually doing the Great Loop. So they'll spend their winters in Florida and summers in Canada and are just constantly looping on their boat, and it's basically downstream the whole way because the way the locks work.
If you go counterclockwise.
Yeah. You go counterclockwise.
You go north up the Intracoastal and then south down through the rivers.
And it's a great route. We were planning to spend years doing it because we'd like to go places and stop for weeks or months, as opposed to if you're trying to do it in a year, you're basically constantly moving. But it's an epic travel route.
We did the first 1,000 miles of it, and then decided to come back to Florida, which is where my family's at, because we just wanted to be close to family.
Did you get up to New York?
We made it as far as Charleston,
South Carolina. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can do it on the interior all the way from Florida to Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm not a boat person, but I'd never heard that before.
But up the Hudson River, right? By the Statue of Liberty, up the Hudson River, right?
Yep.
And then take a left at Albany.
Yep.
And follow Erie Canal.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not too many wrong turns you can make. So
and there's a lot of side trips and rivers to explore, and there's a lot of Canadian canals to go through, and it's an epic trip. And that kind of boating is like RVing on the water. So we found a lot of people who are not excited about the boating aspect and going out to oceans and stuff like that. That's not the kind of boating that turned us on either. But this kind is like RVing on the water. You're going to cool towns. And unlike RVing, a lot of times the campgrounds are out in the woods,
which are awesome.
Which is awesome, but the marinas are right downtown. In Charleston, we were walking distance to everything in Charleston. And other cities we've been at, you're right in the heart of it all, which is really kind of cool.
Myrtle Beach would have been next.
Yeah, actually, we would have been before we turned around. Myrtle Beach would have been our next big stop, probably.
Would have been the next stop. That's so interesting because 2 years ago when we were in Ontario, they have the Great Locks that the Trent Severn
that's now the route, and
you can go all the way. And if you follow the Rideau Canal and you hook it up, you can go all the way from Quebec City.
He froze up.
Duluth to Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah.
By using the St. Lawrence Seaway as well. It's amazing the connectivity that there is. But along, it's not really a boating show, but it's a show about being connected. And ironically, whether you're on a boat or whether you're not on an RV, you're still able to do your work
exactly
and see the world.
Yes.
Right. And up until 2013, I was still running my software business remotely. And we had started our Technomadia blog when we first hit the road, sharing, because we were both bloggers when we met. We just continued sharing about our travels. We'd talk about where we were. We'd talk about the people we were meeting.
And share the tips of the practicalities of how we made life on the road work full time. Everything from getting mail to voting and driver's licenses
and internet.
And then we share about internet, and everybody's like, how are you doing this? How are you getting internet? How are you working everywhere you go? And we're like, we get that question so many times.
So there, I just saw Bob put up the book. We wrote the first edition of the mobile internet.
Yeah, see, we're so good. We read your mind.
You did. You awesome.
Because you don't know what I've got down in that little tray there.
I have no idea. He asked me for graphics in advance. It said surprise me.
I think they're going in that direction.
Yes,
absolutely. So in 2013, we wrote our first edition of the book, which was here. I got a copy of it. It was about this thick, nice little overview. I thought, okay, done. I don't ever have to answer questions again. Well, it turns out mobile internet changes a lot.
And there was so much interest in the topic and so many people wanting follow-on questions, and so much stuff was constantly changing that we're like, okay, we'll do a second edition. And if there's enough interest in the second edition of the book, we'll start an online community and a membership site and stuff like that, and maybe put more resources into that. And that just blew up until eventually we were able to say, this is our now full-time job, and we can get rid of all the other software work and consulting work we do, and now just guide people on internet.
So yeah, we track news, we write guides, we have a YouTube channel specifically for sharing about mobile internet, and it's become our full-time job now.
And as well as we now have staff that helps us and helps us write and cover things and provide support. And the angle is we're not trying to sell anybody anything. In fact, we usually talk people out of spending money because we're not driven by affiliates. We're not selling anything. We're member supported, and so we're trying to serve the members and talk them out of spending more money than they need.
So let me ask you this question. That looks like it's the traditional hardcover book.
Yes.
Right? Hardcover or softcover. From the time you started putting your first words down in your word processor till the time you delivered the book was delivered to you in hand, how much had things changed about what you were writing about?
A lot of it, but the most surprising thing that changed is when we first launched the book, we had we mentioned the movie RV, the Robin Williams movie.
RV.
The first thing that changed was he passed away. So it wasn't a mobile internet thing. It was a reference to a movie that we
had to change the reference to Robin Williams. Was in that scene in the movie where he's standing on top of his RV and trying to get the email to go out and to reference that, and then we had to change it to the late Robin Williams. That was the first change.
But 2 weeks later, almost everything so much changed. Our first edition of the book, we tried to recommend specific solutions. We were naming data plans. We had pricing information on the various gear that was out there. That was a huge mistake because that all stuff became so irrelevant in just a month's time. So the book now is very high level, but most of our content is now on the website, the one that's flashing at the bottom of the screen. So there we have guides. We're constantly updating pricing, reviewing equipment, news articles, and things like that. So most of the content is now on the website.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the last 2 weeks on Wednesday night when we do the show, last week I was in a rest area in Lee, Massachusetts on my way back home, doing it by my phone. And the week before that, we were in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, in the northernmost city in New Hampshire before, you could look out and see Canada. And somehow we still had internet to do it. So regardless of where we are, and a few years ago, Bob was in Italy and we were doing the show live. He was in Italy. Yeah. I was here, and we had a guest in California. So talk about different time zones.
So let me just catch up here. Reini Layberg is on. He's with Bradford RV, one of our nice dealers in Nervda. Sabine Jost Washmuth.
Sabina, she's just a few blocks over.
She's a friend here in town.
We're actually going camping with her
she's
next
in town. Well, thank you.
We'll be RVing with her on Monday.
Oh, she's hello from Florida. I guess she is in Florida. Bert Beavers, what does 5G? Oh, we got a question. All right. Bert, you're interrupting our social engagement. What does 5G do for you now versus what it may do for you in 5 years, 10 years? Read an article today about surgery via 5G. Would you trust it? I have the mobile internet book. Man, I don't know if you can look out there 5 years. Go ahead, take a shot at it.
So 5G is basically just
fifth generation cellular.
So 4G has been what has defined cellular in this past decade, the 2010s. 5G is simply the new technology backbone, the new structure that is going to be going for the next decade ahead. It's taking what's good about 4G, redefining the technology, and setting a new foundation for the carriers to build their infrastructure.
So where 5G is starting from is just like how 4G started 10 years ago. 4G started as really good 3G, and over the past 10 years, mobile internet has ramped up amazingly. It's improved so much. 5G is going to be starting as really good 4G with bouts of much better stuff as you're getting kind of a taste of what the technology enables. And then over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be just like the past 5 to 10 years of just building and building and building on that foundation with more speed. And in particular, a lot of what 5G is laying out is not just more speed, but more capacity. So more people can be online with less congestion.
And more high bandwidth things. So video stream. Remote surgery is all about that streaming, having a really crisp, real-time video, seeing what you're doing while you're having a robotic control of the surgery on the end.
As long as your boss wasn't as long as your doctor wasn't at Paradise Island or somewhere in a bar room.
So here's my non-technical question then. Does 5G mean that we're going to see more towers, or does it mean we'll have more capable towers and less towers on the landscape?
Oh, well, so there's a little bit of both, because 5G is using a whole bunch of different types of radio spectrum. So the foundation of 5G is using the exact same radio waves as 4G, just using them more efficiently. And actually, a lot of the 4G towers are just getting software upgrades. It'll be the exact same towers, and sometimes it's not. They don't even have to replace the radios because they've designed them in advance to be upgradable.
So, indirect question: in the rural areas, in the landscape where you're actually seeing the towers, there shouldn't be much of a change at all, because they're going to be using the same existing infrastructure, just upgrading what is transmitting out. Now, where the biggest change is going to come is in urban areas. Places with lots of buildings
and lots of people,
stadiums, and that's where this really super fast short range 5G that we all hear about. This is what Verizon has out right now, where you're seeing gigabit speeds and above. That's millimeter wave technology, and that's only going a very short range. And that's the one where they're going to have to put towers like on every
street corner. But the tower is just a little box that's on the side of a street light. It's not a big obtrusive tower. It's just a small thing, but there will be a lot of them. They will be in every building, on every street corner and stuff, and that's what will let the network handle huge capacity in urban areas. And then suburban areas will be kind of a blend. There will be a mix of.
So Bert followed up with this: will the infrastructure required for 5G be somewhat intrusive to the RV experience? And when you're out in the boonies, and once 5G modems and mobile hotspot devices and antennas are out, it's really not going to be all that different from 4G for most of us. Using millimeter wave, most of us we're not RVing in places where millimeter wave is going to be at.
Yeah, and your mobile devices will always still have an off button. So if you want to disconnect from the internet, that will still be allowed. I don't think they'll mandate constant 5G.
I thought they were going to put the 5G chips in our head.
Well, no, that's coming in 10 years.
No.
That's 6G is when they put the chip in your head and then you can't turn it off.
Okay, so I put the potato chip in my mouth a while ago, but that's a different story, I guess.
That's a different type of chip.
Winnebago Vita that we have access to right now, a couple things that I noticed about it. It's on a Mercedes chassis. So I believe the internet, it says my van. So I believe that there's internet right in the truck.
Yes.
So are you familiar with that? My van, or at least it's the Mercedes internet. And secondly, there are 2, 4, at least 6 points, no, 8 points to charge for USB charging. So obviously the industry is at least with the curve. They're not too far behind the curve when it comes to technology and the power necessities for technology.
Absolutely. It's great to see the USB charging coming standard in most modern RVs because so many of our gadgets these days require that sort of charging. And we're seeing more RVs coming off the line with integrated mobile internet solutions. And and the downside that we're seeing to that is they are starting at the low end stuff. And we get a lot of questions of, will this device keep me connected? I'm going to be working remotely. It's like, maybe, but not as optimally as understanding what you can get with going with higher end equipment that's probably not going to come installed in an RV that's coming off the line.
Yeah. And then there's the stuff like you mentioned, the telematics stuff. There's a lot of vehicle manufacturers right at the Mercedes factory and at the Ford factory, all this stuff. They're building in mobile internet right into the vehicles for the vehicle's purpose so that they can update the software because cars are becoming so so software driven now. Yeah. And rather than have people go to a dealer once every 5 years to fix the software, they can just push it over the network, and they're like, well, maybe we can use that connection that the car's already got to do some data for, maybe we find ways to sell that and do stuff to that. So there's a lot of stuff happening with car telematics and vehicle telematics. And then as we get to self-driving cars, they're going to need to be connected so that they can know more about what's up ahead on the road. And it's a lot of stuff changing in that world.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, John Bowen has a question. Want to read that?
John Bowen?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your recommendation for internet service for those that work using voice VoIP soft phone and managing personal medical documents? We would do more RV traveling. However, we worry about having a good connection and security when going to work the next day in a new location while on the road. That's a mouthful, but go ahead and take it.
Yes. We get questions a lot about working remotely because when you're working remotely, mobile internet is not just nice to have.
You can get fired.
It's essential. It becomes critical to you having a mobile lifestyle. And for that, there is not a single one-size-fits-all solution that I can recommend because you really need to keep in mind the things that you need to be able to do online. Your security in this case is very important. Yeah. Following HIPAA regulations and probably having sort of way of being able to secure that sort of data. But also, where are you traveling to? What sort of locations are you going to? Are you going to places where AT&T works best or Verizon works best or T-Mobile? Or do you need satellite internet? Or are you going to places with known good campground Wi-Fi? Let me know if you find one of those.
And up in New England, actually, U.S. Cellular is a major player up in New England too. So there's multiple networks.
Most of us that are working on the road, we build what we call a mobile internet arsenal. It's several solutions so that we have redundancy. So when we get to a location, we have multiple things to try, so that we're not stuck in that lurch that we can't get online today.
You can think of it as building up a bag of tricks, or just. And having multiple options, multiple things to try. And then if you plan your travel so that you're not trying to move and work on the same day. So you can, before you go to a new location, you can do some homework in advance, do some research of like, is that place got good coverage? Which carrier is going to most likely work there? Travel on an off day, then get there, test to make sure it meets all your theories. And usually, and most often than not, there's a lot of us out there who are working, and some people working very demanding jobs with incredible connectivity needs. You can make it work, but it's not as simple as just being at home and plugged into a cable modem.
You're probably going to want multiple cellular carriers. You want to get familiar with signal enhancing, using cellular boosters and antennas, and know how to use them.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking.
One second. Question. this was for one of my friends in the document imaging industry. I had a document imaging company for 40 years. But I happened to be talking to him this weekend. He's buying a camp up in Moosehead Lake, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And he works in the corporate building in New Jersey. But he is in an executive position. He can work anywhere now, and the company understands that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to buy a camp in Moosehead Lake, Maine. And there isn't a lot of internet up there. And I said to him, well, I'm the last person to ask, but I've got some people who understand this stuff on the show Wednesday nights. So hopefully Tim is on in listening mode maybe. But there can't be a lot of difference between an RV, a boat, and a cabin on a lake in Maine, because you want to get connected. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you say to people that are in that range? Because he's going to have to get a
Mm-hmm.
demanding internet connection. And
Right. So stationary is a completely different challenge than mobile. In mobile, we're looking for what are the options I want to carry on board so that I have options when I'm moving location, because each location presents its own challenges.
But the challenge for a stationary location like his Moosehead Lake, there might only be one thing, or there might be zero things that work there. There's nothing, carrying a lot of multiple options to Moosehead Lake isn't going to help you. It's spending time talking to other people there, finding out what has worked, maybe doing some experimentation, whether you might want to actually set up a 40-foot tall mast with a big directional antenna pointing in one place. These are things that make sense to do if you're setting up for just one location, but most RVers aren't going to carry around the gear to set up a 40-foot mast and a directional antenna.
Okay, so understanding that, because he's done some of that homework, and the internet,
Right.
The internet companies and the carriers are very weak. But do you bypass the carriers if you're working off satellites? What happens when somebody's in a remote location in an RV and doesn't have their phones and that connectivity? So are there satellite solutions that can work in a home environment?
This actually goes to the questions that are queued up here.
There are some questions here about Starlink coming up. So current satellite options, there are residential and business satellite options that you can subscribe to. We don't know much about them because they're not mobile. We focus on people who are moving locations, but there are mobile satellite options. HughesNet has it, and RV Datasat has options where you can get a dish that moves with you with your RV, and you can set up, and that's going to be ideal for someone who is going to places where there's not options for cellular or Wi-Fi access points. The downside is the current satellites are way, way up in space. They're 23,000 miles away, which means
the speed of light comes into play,
and there's a long latency period in between when you send a request to the time it gets back to you. Like if we were having this conversation, it would be like
we'd be constantly talking on top of each other, because the delay, that 1 second delay, you'd have to say over, to avoid that.
We do that anyway, by the way.
That brings up a good point, though, because what about all these, like the Wine Guards and the Kings that have these, portable satellite receivers that you throw on top of the picnic table or outside your house? Are they having that same difficulty?
So that's television. So
television is one way.
So when you're doing satellite television, the satellite is talking to you and you're just receiving it. You're not talking back to the satellite and trying to interact with it. With internet, it's two-way. In order to do this sort of experience, I'm having to upload a heck of a lot of data, and I'm having to download a bunch of data.
And that's why satellite TV dishes are completely different type of technology than satellite internet dishes. Satellite internet dishes are much, for the geostationary satellites, are much bigger, much more expensive, much more complicated to set up, or if you get an expensive auto-aiming robotic one, they're very, very expensive, not like a little satellite TV dish.
What's very expensive, Chris?
The auto-aiming ones go for about $25,000.
Well, the RV Datasat one is $9,000.
The RV Datasat one goes for $6,500 to $9,000.
Yeah, and that's the cheapest. That's the cheapest RV auto aiming one.
But the fastest you're going to get with that one is about 4 megabit per second down and about 1 up, and that's going to cost you about $250 a month for data.
So satellite for most people, unless they know they're really going to be in a place where there is no other option, And you'd be surprised because cellular is almost everywhere, but there are places where there's not. So satellite makes sense there. But this is all changing in basically over the next 2 years, because there's a whole new generation of low Earth orbit satellites that instead of being 23,000 miles over the equator, up there, they're only like 300 to 500 miles up. So that speed of light goes away. But the satellites it's a whole different level of complexity. So, you don't have to aim at them, but you have to have a much more advanced dish that can auto track all these satellites.
So that's what SpaceX is launching now. In fact, we get to watch the launches from here in Sanford because the Cape Canaveral is just right over there. There's currently about 600 satellites already launched. In order to get nationwide and global coverage, they've got only about 3,000 more to go. So it'll take them. Elon's about.
It's 1,200 is going to start getting nationwide coverage, but yeah, they've got another year of launches. They're just starting this summer the private beta up in Washington State. Later this fall, they'll have a public beta, and maybe by the end of the year, they'll have a public beta. And then next year, Starlink will start to have options primarily focused on residential places. And it gets really interesting then.
Yeah, there's
it must be very interesting for the RVer then too. It
could be very interesting for
RVer, right?
So let me ask this question along those same lines. I'm not a techie, as we've already explained and proven as well, but I'm a MiFi guy.
Okay.
Am I a dinosaur?
No. Here's my MiFi.
Okay.
We've got all the MiFi.
So MiFi is a branding term. It's technically called a mobile hotspot device. And this is going back to cellular. This has nothing to do with Starlink satellite, so no one's confused. This takes a cellular data signal, much like your smartphone does, and it converts it to just a data connection. It creates its own Wi-Fi hotspot that you can use to get your laptops, streaming devices, everything else online. They're fabulous devices. They've got a battery inside, so you can take it with you, work on a picnic table, take it on a hike. They're still a core part of a mobile internet setup, and a lot of people rely on these. We keep them around. We prefer cellular embedded routers, which are higher end.
And make it easier to hook up to external antennas too.
But what we like about it is you see those two ports on the back right there?
Those are antenna ports.
That allows you to hook up an external antenna, and there's a really, I'm going to grab that one. There's a really nice, inexpensive one for about $40 that you can pick up on Amazon.
Best $40 you could spend. Rather than buying a $600 cell booster, if you've got a mobile hotspot like this, you could get this a little antenna like this, suction cup this in your RV window, and this will almost always, not always, but almost always outperform a cell booster for $40.
Yep. So this is
what I have here. It looks like it's probably the same.
Yep, it looks like is it Verizon? Yep, Verizon 8800. This is their flagship device. I've got the Sprint version right here.
But they're almost the same. Yeah.
There's almost the same device. They're great.
And yeah, get that antenna, and you will probably double your speeds just by suction cupping that to a window.
Wow. Would you do us a favor, and we ask this of all of our guests, because we won't be able to get all the questions that they have, but after the show or tomorrow sometime if you have a chance, can you go back through the comments and then put links to those types of things that were asked about tonight so that people have those?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So
Sandy has some other questions here, Bob.
Sandy says, what's the next most exciting thing you are watching?
So we just talked about Starlink.
Yes, that's very exciting.
And that's what Jerry was asking about with StarNet. It's called Starlink.
And it's not just SpaceX's Starlink. They got a head start, but there's also another network called OneWeb that is underway, and Amazon is about to be investing billions of dollars into bringing out their own next generation satellite network. So we're going from kind of satellite being awkward and kind of the dinosaur of connectivity to, in another 5 years, there's going to be a whole lot of interesting satellite options combined with 5G. So we're going to be having all sorts of really fun new ways to connect in the years ahead.
Hey, while one of you is talking, one of you is linking, Jerry said, please drop a link to the MiFi antenna if you've got the capability to do that.
Yeah, they'll do that tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, this doesn't have a way for us to type here.
The app doesn't have it.
And is StarNet and Starlink the same thing?
StarNet is nothing. That's not a thing. It's called Starlink.
Yeah.
Starlink, okay.
All right, so Jerry says, yes, drop a link on the MiFi antenna. Bert says,
it's if you look at rvmobileinternet.com/netgear-MIMO, that's MIMO.
That'll give you a whole review of that antenna and links to where to get it and stuff.
Interesting.
Okay.
So if
Jerry says, yes, drop a note. Bert says balloons.
Balloons. Oh, so there is actually Google has sponsored for years now a thing called Project Loon, which is mobile internet delivered by balloons. And they've actually, it sounds like a crazy idea, and but it actually works. They've used this in like Puerto Rico when there was
after the hurricanes
and stuff. They were able to send up all these big weather balloons with advanced software that can control how they move in the air by finding the wind patterns. So the balloon basically stays up for a week at a time, and they'll actually send up a whole fleet of them, and they're basically flying cell towers. And it's really interesting. I think they just got a contract to do one country overseas is going to actually make it a permanent thing, not just a disaster thing. So yeah, mobile internet by balloons. That's get the cell tower up really, really high is a thing. It's actually a thing.
Wow, that's crazy. Susan Carpenter has joined us. She's one of the founders of the RV Women's Alliance, and she is late again for about the third week in a row. Susan, we're going to have a little conversation. Frank says, so do I understand correctly? Frank wants to take a couple of steps backwards. Frank just got his first Airstream, and he's just kind of getting going in this stuff here. But he says, do I understand correctly, the book is free, and how do I get it? So is it the book, or is the book passé, and now everything is online? So how do people get that kind of information?
So if you want the book,
promote your products. It's okay to promote your products.
So you can get a heck of a lot of free content just by going to rvmobileinternet.com. We offer a getting started guide with an overview. We got tons of videos. There's a lot of information you can tap into for free. We do offer the book is still available for free download. You just sign up for our mailing list, which we give you once a month a recap of what's going on in the industry.
And that mailing list is free. Yeah.
And you can download the book for free. It is 2 years out of date. We're waiting for Starlight. It's still pretty relevant.
The book, because we took all the stuff that changes from the book and put that on the website. So the book is still there, and you can still get the print version on Amazon if you want to pay for it. If you like paper, which some people do. But
we're hopefully going to be rewriting it. We'll see if it makes sense. If books still make sense with all the content we have on the website. But with 5G coming out, Starlink coming out, and Sprint and T-Mobile about to merge, we're kind of. The book it's got some stuff that needs some updating.
And he read our mind again.
He read our mind.
So I said in a promo for you that, we're going to talk to you for about an hour. And believe it or not, we're already 45 minutes into it. And you have such a vast array of knowledge.
Yes.
And I have no problem with people promoting their services because they've earned that right, and you've earned the respect of the industry, knowing all about this stuff. What does somebody get as a premium member? Because they're probably thirsty and their tongues are hanging out saying, wow, I got all this stuff in 45 minutes. What the hell am I going to do when I have to really start to incorporate it and do that? What does somebody get for a premium member? And this is not staged, folks. I found this on their website today, and I said, look, that's not a whole lot of money to get the kind of education these two are giving us here.
So we are member funded, as Chris mentioned earlier. We're not selling stuff. You won't find advertising on our website. We do very minimal affiliate, just the standard Amazon stuff. Our funding all comes from premium memberships, and we consider the membership something ideal for people who consider mobile internet an important part of their lifestyle, or just people who want to stay up with it. And with that, you get the more in-depth guides. So you get our more in-depth guide. We have over 90 in-depth guides going into security, topics, networking, mobile routers, signal enhancing, a whole bunch of stuff. We have a classroom. We have a video classroom with, we'll walk you from start to finish with interactive video sessions with us.
We've got interactive forums where people can bring their questions and we can discuss topics.
Our reviews, we're constantly taking gear out into the field, so you get access to our in-depth reviews so you can make informed decisions. A lot of vendors, instead of when they offer us affiliate relationships, we instead ask them to give that affiliate kickback to our members in the form of discounts. So all the companies that offer affiliate relationships with other influencers, well, our members get that
special private discounts. Yeah. So we have a lot of really good stuff. We try to take care of our members, and And then for people who don't want to become members, who don't need a lot of stuff, almost every guide we write, we have
Free
all
content.
the basics is free, and then the deeper stuff is paid for. So whether you want to, we'd like to support the industry that way and give back, but we really appreciate when people go further and support us as well. So
okay, so guys, the question that always comes up when I would give people backstage tours in the entertainment business is, what is your daily life like? When I would dealing with country music stars and they're on the big tour bus and people want to know, how glamorous it is. Give us a day in the life of you guys as to how much work, how much play, and how much agita you get during a regular day.
It varies quite a bit. So it depends upon if we've got major industry news going on, then we're sitting right here in this seat,
typing away,
writing a lot of content, producing videos to cover it. If we're rolling out a new feature, a new guide, then we're working a lot.
We got smart and we did hire some people to help us, so we are no longer quite as chained to the desks, but we still, we work a ton. But we enjoy it. We love playing with this gear sometimes too. So
yeah, a lot of our life is sitting right here.
Sitting
catering.
here.
Actually, if you look behind us, the little fluff ball over there is our cat. She rules our life. That's pretty much the other part of our life.
Yes.
So right now we're not exploring as much, but we are. We're going out to state parks, hiking.
Fluff ball.
I can understand that. This is their new home on Wednesday night. So they just sit here and
nice
screen and pay attention. So they're good students. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a mix. Some days we might go several days in a row where
we barely step off the boat, but it's like
others we don't.
Yeah, we try to mix it up a lot actually, and because we sometimes take the boat out on the lake and anchor out. We take the RV out to state parks, and life is. The whole world is basically staying at home in their office right now anyway. So it's
not often wearing clothing though. So just
but I'm guessing, based on your enthusiasm, because one of the things that John and I are really big on, and we love to see it in our guests, is I think the best word in the English language is passion. Mm-hmm. And I suspect this isn't work at all. I don't think I've worked a day in my life. But, you got to get your ass out of bed in the morning. You ought to be able to do something that you enjoy. And I've had that pleasure for 7 decades plus now. So I think
the last 7 bosses that have fired him have said, Zagami, you haven't done a damn thing since you've been here. That's what he meant. He's just trying to puff it up a little bit.
But I suspect it's more the passion and the love of what you're doing, which number one brought you together, but number two, it allowed you to build this incredible business along the way. So it's not always about the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Absolutely. We're doing this because we're at a point in our career where we could both retire right now. And so we're doing this completely by choice. That's why we picked a funding model where we're not having to be out there selling stuff. We can give, and people who want to support us, that's fantastic. But that's not our goal anymore. We're very blessed to be in that phase of our life. Mm-hmm. We're both technology nerds and have been our entire lives. I grew up with it. My dad was a software programmer from back in the 70s. We both have had travel in our blood as kids. Yeah. And we both just naturally love to help people. That's what we were doing on our personal blog. This is what we were doing anyway. And when someone basically hit us over our head and said, why aren't you charging for what you do? We thought they were crazy that anyone would ever pay an annual subscription fee so that we could tell them to go buy Verizon.
Well, Mark Polk is on here tonight, and I always joke with him and Don. I say, you got to raise the prices on your stuff, and they don't want to raise the prices. They want to make it affordable to the masses and give them good information, consistent information. Chris Andrew just joined us, and I'm not going to knock him tonight because he's usually on early. But Chris is the dealer I was telling you about before the show down in Connecticut, and he says, "Hey guys, sorry I'm late. I just got home. Another day, 7 more newbies on the road
Fantastic.
to RVs." Now, I don't have to tell you what's happening in the RV industry with our dealers. They're down on inventory. They can't get enough units coming in from the manufacturer. They got people buying them online, wiring money. The stories are all out there. We just did another one last night with Chronicle in Boston. So with this new wave of RVers that are coming in. They are, number one, they're first timers to RVs, but even more important, they're first timers to campgrounds. So there's an added burden on people like Chris and his team down at Hemlock Hill to really get them a good PDI before they take off, because they don't know a damn thing about the RV. But then they go to campgrounds and they don't know anything about campground etiquette. And then they can't get to watch their Netflix, so they're pissed and they go up to the office and they start yelling at the campground owner. So what advice do you have for our dealers? You know, we've got 35 dealers in 6 New England states here. What advice do you give dealers and campground owners?
Ooh, it's like, as far as connectivity goes, is I think letting people know that they shouldn't expect the campground to be providing their connectivity. That's going to be if you want to stay connected, you need to bring that with you.
Well, they need to be realistic, because so many people hitting the road now. Streaming video is such a part of all of our lives. Doing things like this, being able to participate in things like this, but most aren't used to using a mobile connection and just how finicky they can be on the road, especially trying to use campground Wi-Fi.
Or how to deal with all the limits that a lot of these plans have, as they think, oh, I got an unlimited plan for my carrier, but they don't understand that that's not necessarily going to apply when you're trying to watch something on your TV.
It's only fast for this, and then when you go over here,
yes. Unlimited. It's
unlimited. Slow as hell, but it's unlimited. Yeah.
So there's all of these things can be worked around, and there are real ways to get lots of data and get big screen views and stream all you want, but you have to do a little bit of homework first.
And you don't go to your carrier store, because they're not gonna be able to set you up.
They don't cater to RVers. They don't understand these questions. So I think the message out to the dealers is to pass on to people that, yes, all these things are possible. Don't get frustrated at the campground. Don't get frustrated at don't go to the Verizon store and start yelling. You have to go on and do your homework and learn how to just take a few basic steps on your own so that you can do it the way you want.
And don't cut through my camper site.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Bob, let me read Sandy's question, because I think it's important, because there's a person who is executive director of RV Women's Alliance, but also lives full-time in an RV. So I don't know where, Sandy, tell us where you are right now. But she's one of those people that, in order to do her job, dealing with people, members all over the United States, or probably all over North America for that fact, she needs to be connected. So her question is there any other mobile carrier close to catching up with Verizon on coverage? I keep hearing that AT&T is rising.
I wrote an app for that. So one of the apps we wrote
years ago,
10 years ago, before we started the Mobile Internet Center, is called Coverage. It's with a question mark. You can find it in
Android and iPhone app stores.
But so here's the nationwide Verizon coverage map.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty good.
Nice. All right. Pretty good. And then now here's AT&T's on top of it. So anywhere that you see just red is places where
it's just Verizon.
Where it's just Verizon and AT&T doesn't have coverage. Let me reverse that. And then here I reverse. I put Verizon on top. You can see there's very few places where AT&T has coverage, but Verizon doesn't. But
there are some, and there's kind of an accident of history. It's like Verizon and AT&T going back into the 1G and 2G era were the only companies that had nationwide cellular licenses, and so they kind of divided up the country, and there were some places that were strong Verizon areas and some places that were strong AT&T areas, and they didn't really compete with each other.
But if you zoom in, you can start to see there are places where AT&T has coverage, Verizon doesn't. So it really comes down to where you are. The other advantage is it's not just about coverage. It's about capacity and speed that each of the carriers has. Now, Verizon has kind of stagnated on their future upgradability. We're getting more and more reports of slower speeds and people running into that dreaded network management. That's when the carrier reserves the right to slow you down because you have data.
And Verizon's AT&T got a contract for FirstNet. This is the government public safety network where they have basically dedicated cellular channels for first responders. And so AT&T got several $1 billion to go upgrade every one of their cell towers across the country to support this.
T-Mobile's on top of it all.
And And so AT&T has put a lot of extra capacity because they went and did all these tower upgrades. So a lot of places where Verizon is congested, AT&T has got a lot of extra speed, particularly if you have newer devices, because AT&T uses so many different frequency bands. Older phones can't talk to the newer frequency bands. But so AT&T has done a lot of great upgrades. And then meanwhile, T-Mobile now, particularly that they bought Sprint, they also have now a ton of raw network capacity and are in third place, but are kind of now, it's kind of turning into this three-way battle, particularly as we go into the 5G era of there really is no single dominant carrier. There's three nationwide carriers now of T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. And they all have their own strengths. Yeah,
T-Mobile and Sprint will start really merging their networks. Yeah. Now we track this all. If you want to see these coverage maps, the app, of course, you can get a free trial version of it. But if you go to rvmobileinternet.com/4-carriers, that URL may change to 3-carriers soon.
So am I right in saying the
advantages of each?
The app is coverage ?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I posted that. And you were ahead of Valerie. Valerie says, can you show us the T-Mobile coverage?
Yep.
She beat you to it, Valerie.
Yeah. Here's the interesting part of it. You never know what you're going to run into in this show, because I read that question from Sandy, and I said, Sandy, tell us where you're located, and guess where Sandy is. Mobile,
okay.
Alabama.
Let's zoom into
We're talking about Mobile coverage in Mobile, Alabama. Yes. I just thought it was ironic that we were talking about mobile connectivity, and then she's in Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile in Mobile.
Okay, so this is AT&T's coverage in Mobile, which should be good. Yours should be similar to Verizon. So in that location, you're good with any carrier. It's when you get out into the boonies, you get away from the urban areas where the carriers start to have a difference. Mm-hmm. And it's also that capacity in those urban areas.
Yeah. And it's also about how old is your phone or your hotspot, because so much of the extra capacity all the carriers add is only supported by newer devices. So you can have an old, we run across someone just the other day who has like a dinosaur of a Verizon device, and they're like, why is this so slow compared to my phone? It's like, well, that is literally 10 years old. The phone has got a lot more capacity.
Yeah, interesting. So we have 3 minutes left. Is there anything that you would want to say that we haven't asked you, that you say, you know what, this show's not complete unless they hear this?
There's a favorite spot in New England that we have. Schroon Manor.
I love the Adirondacks. Schroon Manor State Park was probably our all-time favorite campground.
It's one of our favorites ever. Yeah, it was so beautiful.
In New York?
In the Adirondacks?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's not quite, I guess, New England, but
that's not New England, right? We don't allow anything from New York. Especially the Yankees.
All right. So in Maine, the Shodak Woods
National Park,
and that was beautiful. I loved that one.
Yep. I'll be up there in a couple of weeks with the Winnebago Vita on a product tour.
I would love to get back and do more RVing in New England. We had for so many years we heard how it was like, it's a place to avoid because it's so hard to take RVs up there. It was wonderful. It was RVing. It was amazing up there.
I do a lot of product reviews. I did a product review on a 40-foot diesel pusher one time, and I took it downtown Bar Harbor, and my wife thought I was crazy, and so did all the people that were on the other side of the island from the bus. But it's not. They have this fear. You can maneuver all of our small. I wouldn't take it downtown Boston. I would say that. Who asked the question about New England?
It was up there earlier where
Bert Beavers.
Oh, was it? Somebody said, "What was your favorite place in New England?"
Yeah, Bert Beavers.
Oh, Bert. Okay. Isn't he one of your Florida guys?
Are you up in New England, Bert? And is this the first time that you have?
Kodak Woods. Yeah.
I don't remember the name. So if you're the first timer, I appreciate you joining us tonight. Boy, we're at 7:59, and we could do this for a week, and it'd be a lot of fun. I think so.
We thought we could write a book and be done with it. No, here we are 7 years later.
It's been 7 years since the first book.
7 years, yeah, and we're working 50, 60 hours a week, still trying to keep up with this. So.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping Starlink is really good, so we can just take down our site and just put a link saying go buy Starlink.
I think Starlink's going to be fantastic, but it's still
going to need so many other options too.
You're still going to have cellular as a backbone, I think.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being with us on this show, and you know what? You never know. We really don't have to prepare for it because our audience is so great. And I'm sure you'd agree that the level of intellect in the questions that they ask keeps you thinking. For 1 hour that the show is actually an hour.
We didn't even get a chance to let you do your little plug here, John.
Yeah. To tell people that have watched the show live to just share it with people in the RV industry and in the RV lifestyle that want to do that. We're going to send you guys the YouTube version of it probably by the end of the day tomorrow, and ask that if you thought this was worthy to share this with your audience, and we'll get you the YouTube version so we can start building a YouTube audience at the same time.
Yeah, it was phenomenal having you on. Jerry Plant says he's already ordered the Mimo, and Reed Stewart says good program, and Susan loved the show, great content, and Stanley says it was great to see you guys have fun. So we certainly appreciate it.
You guys are great. I think they're referring to me.
To join us tonight. So travel safe in your boat, in your RV, and in your Travato, but especially the GM 4106. So hopefully we'll catch up to you if we ever have industry events again. No, don't make me jealous there, Chris. I have a collection of little buses and RVs, so that hurts me on the 4106. Yeah, but so hopefully once we get back to having shows or get-togethers in the RV industry, we'll have a chance to grab an adult beverage with you and swap some more stories. But thank you very much for giving us an hour of your time tonight. We really enjoyed it.
Our pleasure. Thank you for inviting us on. This was awesome.
Good night. Travel safe.
Good night.
Great day, everybody.
Good night.